got really cool callers.
Yeah. Who do you want to
Let's
talk
do
to next?
So in order, I want to be able to take Tom after Nick because Nick So let's start with Nick.
Okay, perfect.
And I believe, is this Nick Snap?
This is Nick Snap.
Nick, you there?
I am here.
Hello.
How's it going?
Doing well. So you had V and I both on over the last few days on your show, Miracles and Atheists. For people who don't know who you are, I want to kind of let people know just a little bit about who you are. Nick reached out to me years ago when I was just starting out on YouTube as well, wanting to set up good faith dialogues between atheists and Christians. And I'd been on your show a couple of times, and you decided that, a lot was happening in your life and you needed to take a break. And so you're restarting fresh, but you definitely kept that connection and you maintained a good relationship with me. And so when you reached out and said, hey, Eric, do you want to come on my thing? I'm starting it back up. I said, heck yeah. So Nick, hello. What did you want to talk about today?
Hello. You nailed it. Yeah, that's it. Well, first time caller. So I also, you and I talked about, getting quality callers on here. Not that I'm blowing smoke about myself or anything like that, but I do want to feed you quality callers, and I don't want to set the bar too high. But yeah, anyway, I'm excited to be on here. I really enjoy talking to both of you. Ironically, the interview with the ex-vampire had something to do with that. So that kind of spurred my topic that I wanted to talk to you all about here this morning.
Sure.
This idea of worldwide conspiracies. I'm just going to be honest with you, Eric and V. The Friday, I was very disappointed and just a lot of things. But when the flat Earth thing came up, and I know you just talked about it, I was like, wow, where do I even go? It just really took me back, and I wasn't even really sure where to go from there because it was just very disappointing. So I'm not going to get into all that, but
it is. I do kind of want to clarify because I feel like people who are watching may not understand what is disappointing about that. Nick, I think you're a great guy, but when I saw around Halloween you had this guy on, and he was making these amazingly ridiculous, fantastical claims that were so damaging. And the amount of times they went, oh, wow, yeah, really? And this happened too, didn't it? I was really, really bummed because I was like, where has Nick gone? What happened that drew him to a place to believe really, really fantastical, magical, dangerous claims? And out of all of the redonkulous things he said, I'm glad one of them stuck. I'm glad the flat Earth thing stuck. And so for people who are watching, Nick, I know it seems a little harsh, but we've got a whole audience who are watching who don't know who you are. And so I want to contextualize that so people go, okay, when Nick says he was disappointed, is he saying he was disappointed in Eric? No, Nick was disappointed in this gentleman that he thought was a tether to understanding the evil Satanists and a tether to understanding this spiritual magical world. Turns out that he's just a nut.
Let me clarify that.
Okay.
I got to clarify that. I didn't necessarily consider him a tether to these things. However, I did think he'd have a lot more to back up his claims, and that was disappointing for sure.
Yeah.
But, I think I try to give people the benefit of the doubt, right? And I'm not going to say I humor people on my show. I try not to. I'm getting better. I'm trying to just get better overall about not being a people pleaser and all that kind of stuff. So
sure.
I do try to give people the benefit of the doubt for if they make a claim. Okay, let's go with this and see where it goes next. So I dropped the ball in a couple areas there as far as, dude, you did your homework exceptionally well, and I admire you for that. And I am actually I'm going to take that out of your playbook when moving forward. Not that I don't do my due diligence, at appropriate levels at all times, but I learn from that. So I'll just maybe make that.
I appreciate that. Honestly, I had no idea how wild it was until I reached out to a friend Dietrich, who was just like, you're having who on? I was like, I'm going to be talking to Bill Schneebelen. And he was like, holy crap, my family grew up with his books in the house and we were paranoid and it was intense. And I was like, oh, okay, now I need to look into this. And you had someone on who had glommed on to the Satanic Panic in the 80s and had used and essentially weaponized paranoia and xenophobia to spread vile things about other groups of people to keep people afraid. And that fear led to lots of people being losing their jobs, being ostracized from their communities, jailed for decades. And I mean, it was a modern day witch hunt. It was a mass hysteria. And the fact that he appealed to the mass hysteria to back up the mass hysteria. And every time I said it was proven wrong, he never corrected it because he knows it's true. Right. It was an issue. I'm sorry, but we're going a little long. You wanted to talk specifically about worldwide conspiracies and whether or not worldwide conspiracies can be valid. Is that right?
Correct. And I don't want to go really with Bill on this one, but you did bring it up. It kind of just jogged my memory where you said, Bill, are you proposing SRA? Is that right? Satanic ritual abuse?
That's a Christian term.
That kind of thing from that group. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So that kind of what led to the question of you saying, okay, are you posing a worldwide conspiracy? But then that got me thinking about other things like the state of our nation and a lot of the things that are going on to date. And I wanted to just kind of talk to you about some of those topics.
Sure. So I question, do you think that there are underground pedophile tunnels in Washington?
I don't know about tunnels, but I do think there could be elite groups that take part in human trafficking. Yes.
Okay. So elite groups taking part in human trafficking gets me to, I think that is true. Okay. I think that the specific, one side, liberal, Democrat, authorities are pedophiles is number one. You have to see it on its face as just horrific. Number two, that would bolster, like, I just don't understand that. So, okay. That is a lot lower of a claim. So if you think that Jeffrey Epstein existed, which he did, do you think that makes it more or less likely that Pizzagate was a thing? Because
Jeffrey Epstein, everything that he was doing in the islands was more or less likely if Pizzagate was a thing. I think it would make there could be a correlation there.
Okay, so you also understand that with the Pizzagate accusations that there was blood sacrifices to demonic entities and cannibalism. Do you think that the existence of Jeffrey Epstein backs up those accusations of blood sacrifices and cannibalism and all of that?
No, you would need to have more for that claim to be made.
Okay.
Eric, I didn't really want to go like with the child sacrifice thing. I just kind of used it as a catalyst for the conversation. But
I get it.
I want to talk about specific.
But here's the thing: somebody showed up at a pizza restaurant, right, with a weapon, ready to mow down employees and save the children in the basement.
Yeah, it's a problem. Yes, that's a problem.
So I don't want to get too esoteric. Yeah, I don't want to get too esoteric. It's really, really dangerous believing a thing without evidence. So I want to talk about another conspiracy, though. Another conspiracy theory, not child sacrifice. I want to talk about the transformation of this nation to, or the desire for certain people and maybe a large group of people, I shouldn't say it like this, maybe a small group of people influencing a larger group of people to transform this nation from where we are today, free, a democracy, republic, to communism. Got it.
Talk about that.
Sure. So I think number one, that's steeped.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that number one, that's steeped in a aging culture that had an entire lifetime of anti-communist, anti-socialist propaganda shoved down their throats. Okay. And so using that as equivalent to evil is something that they do right off the bat. I get it. I think the first step is recognizing that you're talking about a system of, governance, and seeing where, okay, something's beneficial and not beneficial will start to de-radicalize you from the insistence that it's evil. But second, no, I've tried. I feel like I've hit a point that if I would have been included into the club, I would have. And the people that I've gotten to talk to and the people I've gotten to spend time with and become friends with would have gotten to. No, I think it's more likely that society is recognizing that we should be good to each other and that simple things like basic human dignity being protected, like human bodies being protected, like the idea that being hungry shouldn't be something that people go, oh, you got to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. But no, taking care of hunger, taking care of health, taking care of basic needs so that people can at least be on footing to grow from there. Dignity, that's not a step towards communism. That's a step towards decency. Yeah. And I think that the accusation that there's an elite conspiracy, no, that is just xenophobia that doesn't recognize what it is. It's people.
Because xenophobia is one of those things I hear a lot, but I'm trying to make sure I understand what xenophobia means.
Sure. So
Can you define that real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. Fear of everything in the outside world. Fear of things that are not yourself.
Okay. Dude, I 100% hope and pray that what you're saying is correct. There is no agenda from a larger group of people. I want to ask this question, Eric. So, like, looking at just who owns the things of this world, the companies, the major organizations, the continued mergers and things like that. If you actually go online, this is public information, you start looking into like who's on the board of directors and who actually
is this
all the major organizations. Ultimately, there's like 3 or 4 of them. There's BlackRock and then Vanguard are at the very, very top. Or not in the board of directors, but the people that actually have the majority of the shares in these companies. So they're really consistently, if you can think of any company, anything on the earth, from mining to food to oil and gas to Facebook, everything ultimately comes down to like 2 or 3 organizations.
Okay.
And that's public knowledge.
So
asking this information. So here's where I'm going to go with this real quick. Like, if that is the case, if you're looking at like who owns, following the money, who owns these things, and ultimately being a smaller group of people, could it be possible if these groups of people want to have their own specific selfish agendas?
Right. So that's different. That's different from the claim, the first claim. The first idea that there's we're facing a situation where the middle class is going away. That we have created a society where the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, and that the protections that are being stripped away from normal people is being it's being called communism, and socialism is being vilified. I think that's actually something that the Republican right has been doing for years and has been enabling for a very long time. Democrats, liberals have been ringing the bell on that for an incredibly long time and been called socialists, communists for it. But the fact is, stripping away, the middle class is, number one, if it did exist, it would exist as a Republican thing. That's first off, just to clarify that. But second of all, I think that there are some very, very powerful people, but the idea that someone would secretly have an agenda that they are trying to cover up. So this specific line of thinking is being used to back up nuts claims like aliens landing and walking among us, anti-Semitism, in the extreme anti-Semitism. And do I need to clarify the anti-Semitism, or do you understand how that has been perpetuated by anti-Semitic views? Okay. It has also been used to prop up this idea that there are huge cover-ups. When we talked to Bill on Friday, he said that, well, the Satanists were summoning this demon, but when they came back the next day, there was no evidence. They're really good at covering themselves up. No, dude. Have you spent any time with friends who are police officers or been around them? They're not going to be able to hold a secret. Like, not like that. If you're expecting every police department in every town, every city, every state, every county, that they all are under the thumb of a grand conspiracy to hide, things like human sacrifice, torture, pedophilia, that's way different than the first statement of, too much money and power in one place. Do you get why that's different?
I see where, yeah, absolutely. I see where it's different. I guess the connection, I didn't really make the link between the communist statement and then the rich owning everything. I guess the communism would be like a label for it, and labels are tricky, right? Like you get that with Christianity all the time. What does it mean to be a Christian, all that kind of stuff. But I look at like, what I'm kind of concerned about is, not kind of concerned about, very concerned about is just the patterns, right? If you look at like people that were around as Cuba transitioned from what they were before, I guess they were their democracy before, to communism, and you talk to people that were around and that were living during that era, and the things that they said were happening in their nation, even like in the 40s with China itself, and Eastern Europe, these people they'll come on there and say in America, like, wake up, look what's happening. And there are things like dividing the population, whether it's Democrat, Republican, vaccinated, unvaccinated, white supremacists.
Okay, so
Okay.
Nick, if you want to call in about vaccines, call in another week.
No.
Can I?
I don't. I want to talk about the division, though, dude. I want to talk about like division of the nation as one of the processes that leads to this alternate form of government and control.
Okay, so I do want to kind of jump in here real fast because I think we got super specific really quickly, and I think that we're probably losing a couple people because the larger conversation here is, do worldwide conspiracy theories exist? And then your question is, would communism be considered one of them?
Good way. That's fair.
Right. So I want to make sure we're addressing that first part first before we talk about the nuances of Cuban government, which frankly I am not prepared to do on this call. So here we go. I just want to make sure that we understand like what a conspiracy theory is and what might be misconstrued as a conspiracy theory. Okay, because conspiracy theories are an attempt to explain harmful or tragic events as the result of the actions of a small, powerful group, usually with political motivation, and such explanations reject the accepted narrative surrounding those events. In fact, the official version may be seen by these people as further proof of the conspiracy. So there are a couple different layers here. That's from Britannica as the definition of conspiracy theory. So there are a couple layers here, right? There's explanation of a harmful or tragic event. It is perpetuated purposefully by a small covert group of people, usually for a political reason, and it goes against the common narrative, and the common narrative is considered part of the conspiracy. So there are like 5 different things in there that I think would then make us talk about a conspiracy theory.
That's a good point.
Granting all of that, there are I don't want to get too comfortable saying things like, oh, well, there could never be an enormous sex trafficking or child abuse organization out there spanning countries and isolated in one stronghold of power because the Catholic Church exists. So
But we know that the Catholic Church is doing it.
Exactly, which is why it's not a conspiracy theory. So let's stop talking about, well, how widespread is this dangerous thing? Is that a conspiracy theory? No. A conspiracy theory is something that is harmful, that is perpetrated by a small group, that is politically motivated usually, not always, and that goes against the common narrative. And there are so many things here. So I want to get away from this idea that like, because human trafficking is creepy and a lot of people unfortunately are hurt by it, it is therefore a conspiracy theory, right? Like those things happen. Absolutely they do. Things on our side, things on your side, things without a political leaning, like bad things happen across the board in general. What you're talking about is a whole other layer to it, which is the conspiracy part, which is, I think, the part that we take issue with. Does all of that make sense?
V, that was fantastic.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah. So I guess it would be, would it be a conspiracy? Well, it's okay. There's a difference between conspiracy theory and conspiracy, though, right?
Right, exactly.
Like at what point do conspiracy theories transition to conspiracies?
When you can prove them.
By enough evidence. Right. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So I guess right now, would you all consider the transformation to this nation as something like communism, whether you want to label it like that or not, a conspiracy theory?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
It's a conspiracy theory in that if you were to look at the legislation that's been passed, the fact that we are regressing as a society into a version of the United States that removes and represses people, that takes away their rights, that I'm sorry. I'm stuck on the Supreme Court right now. V, help me out because I'm
Okay,
not gonna,
so
I'm just gonna get angry.
the problem here, and then I think we should wrap this up and move on to the next caller.
Yeah.
The issue here is twofold, Nick. On the one hand, you're saying, is this thing that I am afraid of or that I see as a concern a conspiracy theory? And I would not say that the concept of a small, powerful group of people influencing a government and trying to take over through legislative action and through voting suppression is a conspiracy theory. And I think we have enough evidence to back up the fact that that is happening, that we can just call that a conspiracy. The theory part of it comes in when you talk about something that isn't actually happening or can't be proven to happen. So communism taking over the US, I don't see any evidence for. If you have evidence for it, please feel free to link it in a comment below or send it to our email or something, because I would want to know about that. I don't see any evidence of that. So that is a conspiracy theory, but not because we're talking about a takeover, a covert takeover of a government. It's because we have not seen that particular thing attempting to covertly overtake this government. So I think we need to wrap up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
I got busy sniping back. You hit the core of the matter, V. Thank you.
Thanks for calling in, Nick. Appreciate you.
You're welcome. My pleasure. And I appreciate you all. And thank you all for being on my platform. And we'll do it again soon.
Absolutely.
Sounds good. Link in the description.
All right.
Yep.
Link is actually currently in the description. You're right. I spend so much time, especially because I've been working with Holy Kool-Aid for the last few years, just watching the legitimately actually happening conspiracies going on with the Quiverful movement, with it just.
Yeah, and I think that's it's valuable for people on the side of perpetuating conspiracies and conspiracy theories to get us up in arms and aggravated and focusing on, well, this particular issue is not okay. Agreed. But our emotional draw to that issue, whether that's positive or negative, has no grounding in whether or not something is actually a conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
So
I'm turning red. I'm sweating.
You're good.
V, you handled that amazingly. Thank you.
Thank you.